All right, well, it is 10:30, so we're going to get started. Welcome, everyone, to Grant Writing Essentials. My name is Kate Sugg, and I'm a program administrator here with the Westchester County Youth Bureau. A couple virtual housekeeping notes before we begin. Please remember to mute your microphones. Also, if you're going to be moving around, please turn off your video just to minimize distractions. We will have time for questions at the end of the presentation, and at that time, please feel free to unmute and speak or use the chat feature. The session will be recorded and copies of the presentation slides will be sent out for your reference following the webinar. I would now like to turn it over to our presenter today, co-president of the Grant Professionals of the Lower Hudson, Allison Paul.
Good morning, everyone. Nice to be here. I appreciate you having me, and I hope you're all well. We had a little bit of chatting as people were coming in and talked to someone who told us she's getting over COVID. So just a little bit of reality, and I just want to wish you all well. I hope people are healthy and everybody is doing okay. So this is the second workshop. I gave one in May that was on finding the right grant, and now we're zeroing in on some more grant writing essentials. I looked at the roster of who's attending and I saw a couple of names from the Hudson River Museum and just want to give a shout out. I started my nonprofit career here in Westchester in the early 1980s, working at the Hudson River Museum. I was in the education department. The first grant I ever wrote was a NEH Youth Projects grant, which we got, and so there's my shout out to Hudson River Museum from long ago. Today we're looking at the 4 C's: clear, concise, compelling, and consistent grants, and how that's going to help us improve our record of success. So again, our focus is on being clear, concise, compelling, and consistent. In the last session I did back in May, we talked about what does it take to get funded, just a little review. We have to meet requirements. We have to make sure we're a good match. Otherwise, you're really wasting your time. We need to answer every question. And here's where we're going to go today. We're talking about the compelling quality of our grants. We need to convey need with data. We need to prove we have the capacity, and we make sure we've included all the required attachments. So that's just a little review. And I know there's some people on this call that have written grants and some people that have not. So hopefully I'll address a lot of your needs. This is also the summary of last time. The point is, it takes a while to make sure you're finding the right match. And I urge you not to waste your time writing a grant if you're not a good match. You have this for your reference if you didn't attend last month's session. So I'm not going to go over it. It's for your reference. Zeroing in on today: clear, concise, compelling. We're going to start with clear. This is going to help you win your grants. I think clear writing starts with clear thinking. If you don't know what you're trying to do or trying to achieve, you're not going to be able to write about it clearly. So whenever I start a grant or meet a new client, and I'm now a freelancer, having worked as a grant writer for organizations, or actually I was worked for museums in education. Then I became the executive director of the Pelham Arts Center, where I still wrote grants. And then I worked as a grant writer for the public schools of the Tarrytowns, and now I've hung out my own shingle. So whenever I approach a grant, I think about, why do you want this grant? What are the needs? What would address those needs? And I urge you, especially if you're new to this, or maybe you've been doing it a long time and you want to freshen up your thinking, if we had blank, then we could blank. And this is the key. This is important because if we're going to write a clear, compelling grant, we need to remind ourselves why our work is important, especially for this particular grant that we're writing. I teach grant writing at Westchester Community College, and one of the activities I have my students do, we take some time and do this, and we ask ourselves, as a result of this effort, what do we want clients to know, think, or do? So those of you that work for organizations and want to freshen up, I urge you to go back and rethink, why am I doing this? What is our agency's purpose? What is this program's purpose? It will help you write more clearly. As part of clear thinking, I think it's helpful every now and then to think, what makes your program stand out? What are you most proud of? That's not a question you usually see on a grant, but if you can think about it, you can include that and it will help your grant shine. What can your proposal lift up that you do that will make reviewers want to fund you? So we're isolating what's unique about you, what's special about your organization that you can lift up so you'll stand out from the pack. One way to start thinking about this is maybe make a list of things your organization does really well. That might help you get thinking. Now, there's lots of things I hope that you and your organization do really well, but sometimes there's things you need to improve internally so that you're more competitive. Maybe you've had some deficits and you need to show that you're addressing them, or whatever it is. It's also good to address those issues so you can be more competitive. Continue with clear thinking. Once you know why you're writing this grant, that will flow into what your goals and outcomes are. And then you're beginning to create your roadmap. What do we want to achieve and how are we going to get there? That's our roadmap. Part of the planning. We think about these basic who, what, where, when, why. You're thinking about the need, when, why, who it affects. You're taking notes, you're thinking about it so that you can then present it clearly to the reader and they'll get, oh, I see there's a need. I see what they're doing to address it. Bada bing, bada boom. Here we have a frustrated little boy. It's been a long year, right, of at-home learning. So maybe you do an after-school program. Maybe your problem is you had few students attend. Maybe they signed up, but they didn't attend. Why is that a problem? You would think, why? What's the issue? And if I was teaching this class in person, or if I could interact with you, I'd ask you for some answers, but we're going to forge ahead. Maybe some kids did poorly in school, fell behind grade level. We know a lot of kids were isolated. And we also know, and we have data showing that many have been anxious, frustrated, or lonely. And we also know there's been a lot of cyberbullying. So knowing these are the problems, then your agency, what are you doing to fix those problems? How are you moving the needle forward? And that's going to, again, help you write that in your grant. Clear thinking leads to clear writing. What's your solution that your program is designed to address? And that leads to the impact you hope to make. So early on, in fact, I asked the client yesterday, well, what do you want to achieve? What is your hope for your involvement, that you're going to move the needle forward? I could do a whole session on logic models, and I'm not going to, but I like to have you think about impact early on and then work backwards. And this is my sense of humor. I can't see you guys. I hope you're getting a little laugh here and there. This is backwards, written backwards. But think about impact and outcomes. We want 25 out of our 30 students to come to our after-school program regularly and improve their rate of turning in homework, whatever it is, your outcomes, so that we go backwards. Even though whenever you're asked to do a logic model, it always goes left to right. Resources, activities, outputs, And I'm going to break it down in the next slide. Again, I could do a whole class just on creating these logic models, but the inputs are resources, money, staff time, volunteers, facilities. The activities are what you actually do. The outputs are how you do the number of classes taught or number of counseling sessions. And again, we're today focused on outcomes, how we're going to show that we are achieving what we say. We're organizing our thinking. This is all part of being clear. So all that was background in terms of the clear part is organizing, being clear in your head about what you want to accomplish and why, and what difference, what impact you're going to make on your clients. Then we're going to work on clear writing. So you know in your mind what you want to do, but can you convey it? So take a moment and let's just read this. Take a moment. So would you say this is clear? I can't interact with you. Whoops. Do you get a true sense of the program? We have 94 students and go up to 6th grade. When do they start? Does this raise questions as much as communicate? Why are there only tutors in science? And I've started to break this down. It says the program meets every day. Do you mean school day? Go up to 6th grade. To me, all these questions popped up. What grade do you start with? Students get a lot of individual attention. That's kind of vague. Some, kind of vague. Although not on Fridays because children don't want to do homework on Fridays. You're peddling. I don't need to know that. It's not compelling. We hire exceptional tutors in science. Do you hire tutors in other topics? Why just science? So as I go through something like this, to me, this is not clear. Yeah, it's giving you some, but it could be clearer. For instance, do you think this is clear? Take a moment to read it. All right, I'm gonna stop us. So I hope that you see a little more clarity here. We have specificity. It meets Mondays through Fridays. We enroll students grades 1 to 6. We group them by grade level. We meet for academic support 3 days a week. We describe what that academic support looks like and who is doing the teaching. So these are all our inputs and our activities. So this paragraph focused on the what and the academics, and this focuses, and we introduce the fact that we're also cultivating outside interest in social and emotional learning, and we're putting it in context. We show that we survey kids because we want their input. Oh, look, we have places where kids can talk about issues that concern them. We know that's a best practice, and how we're grouping kids. So it's not that much longer, but it gives a lot more specificity. That's clear writing. Now, how about this? The South Memphis After School Program, the SMASP, has 3 divisions. And as you just visually scan this, my point here is look at all these abbreviations. And when we get down to here, we start using them without the parentheses. the BBGSG parent group meets the first Monday at SES, and the EC groups meets the second at SSCC. I don't find this clear. I am one of these people who does not like to use a lot of acronyms, and I see them all the time when I review grants. Watch out for how many acronyms you use. And that's why I use an acronym here. Is this clear? You might be really familiar with your BBGSG program, but I'm not. And I'm reading 50 grants, and I just can't keep it in my brain. So let's be mindful of overusing acronyms and think about what really matters. It's to the outside reviewer, I don't really care if it's your Bright Beginnings grade school group. Maybe I want to know your youngest group, your middle schoolers and your high schoolers. I can comprehend that. Oh, that's age appropriate for the elementary. Maybe I don't need to use the acronyms. Maybe I can figure out other ways to help the reader understand what I'm talking about. Fewer acronyms, focusing on what really matters. And here's another one. I'll read this one. Is this clear to you? At this point in time, our case managers are in a position to be responsible for handling more clients and for following up on state mandated requirements as they are announced, and they change often, so it is difficult for clients referred to the program to know what to do. Our case managers are able to give more focused attention because of having more time. I don't know about you, but I have no idea what they're saying. It's so cluttered with words. It is not clear, but I see this kind of writing a lot. So what can we do? We can break up long sentences into smaller, more comprehensible bites. Let the noun and the verb make the action. Let the reader follow the action. Focus on the noun and the verb. And it's always great to have someone else read it to see if it makes sense. So remember, your grant reviewer reads a lot of grants. And if they're frustrated and don't really get what you're trying to say and they have to read a paragraph 2 or 3 times, you are reducing your chances of getting funded. Clear writing. Does grammar matter? Have you seen this before? Let's eat grandma versus let's eat, comma, grandma. And here's the book this came from. See the kids with their knives and forks chasing grandma. Without the comma, they want to eat grandma. Maybe you've seen this one, slow children crossing. A lot of us work with youth. That is insulting. Slow, drive slowly. Children are crossing here. I've just given you a couple of references. Do check your grammar. These days, there's so many online tools, Grammarly and other things that, and OneWrite help you with grammar, but it does matter. Here's one more cartoon. Eats, shoots, and leaves. If we didn't have that comma, it could be a little violent. So these are 2 fun books, Let's Eat Grandma and Eats, Shoots, and Leaves. If you struggle with not knowing when to use commas, get one of these. They're fun. Clear writing, clear grammar. Moving on to the next C, concise. Let's get to the point. Your reviewer is reading a lot of applications. You want to be the one that stands out, that gets to the point. You don't want your main points to get lost. For many of us, online applications are the bane of our existence. We hate the character counts. Well, actually, they are annoying, but they really do help you get to the point. About a year and a half ago, I'm the co-president of Grant Professionals of Lower Hudson, and we do an event with ADO, Association of Development Officers, every other year. And a year and a half ago, Dr. Harris Madden was one of the presenters. And I was the moderator, and I remember clearly, she said, character counts are there to help you get to the point. They're to help you. because reviewers don't want to just read you going on and on. So shout out to Dr. Harris-Madden. I can't see you, but this is to make you chuckle. I hope you chuckled a little. It's all about getting to the point when you write. You want your reviewer to follow your thinking. When we talk about character counts, this is just a reference for you, so you have roughly a sense of how many characters are how many words, just as a reference for you. But here's an example. So I took this off the internet. This is someone's program. It's 800 characters. And let's say we're writing a grant and we had to do our introduction and we had to reduce it to 600 characters. That's our assignment. So I just want you to see, this is one paragraph. It is 3 sentences and it's 108 words. And by the way, 2 of these sentences, whoopsie, start with the word with a lot of characters additionally. So here's an 800 character. Again, if I taught you in my grant writing class, we would take time and we'd have you practice breaking it down. But here's my suggested version. We had to bring it down to 600 characters. I brought it down under that to 580. You don't have to meet the character head on. Your reviewers will like it if you actually come in a little less. So let's look at this. The Outdoor Discovery Program provides hands-on programs where youth explore outdoor activities and learn new skills. Opening sentence, opening paragraph. I hope we have an idea of what this is. Our program enhances students' knowledge and ethical understanding of wildlife and the outdoors. Through engaging activities, we're varying our sentence structure. Here's a noun. We encourage, noun verb. We encourage health and wellness. Next sentence, noun and verb. Youth learn about blank, blank, blank. And here it's habitat, natural resource, shooting skills, hunting skills, aquatic knowledge, and fishing. So youth learn, and then we list them. We're bringing up camping experience as our highlight. It's lifted up, it's separating it out. I want the viewer to think, oh, that's so fun for kids, camping, what a highlight. And then the last paragraph is just that it correlates with state standards. Now, going back, we had activities are designed. The program is designed, passive voice. Here we have active voice, activities correlate. So bada bing, bada boom, we're concise and we're clearer. And by the way, in the first one, this section of everything they did was one long sentence. I've punctuated it and broken it up into 4 shorter sentences. The reader can't follow too long or too many thoughts at once. Breaking them up for grant writing is the way to go, to be clear. When I review grants, I see people use a lot of these extraneous words. We don't need them. Just get rid of them. I'm not going to go through this, but keep the language simple. Let the reviewer read right to the point. We like to talk about writing tight as grant writers. It actually takes more time to write tight. Editing back, if any of you have ever done an online application, it actually takes a long time. My advice is just get your thoughts down, what you want to say, so that you're sure the important points are there, and then edit it back. Edit, edit, edit. Editing back takes time to make sure you're covering the key points. This has been attributed to a couple of people. I chose Mark Twain. I didn't have time to write a short letter, so I wrote a long one instead. So true, so true. This is my favorite slide in the whole presentation. Short, simple, sweet, lots of white space. Helps us be concise. Extraneous words actually reduce impact, as we'll see. And I sometimes see people use a lot of adjectives and adverbs. You don't need a lot. They actually take away from impact. In our writing, let the nouns and verbs soar. Let them do the heavy lifting. So how might we apply what I've been talking about so far? Let's say in your grant, you're asked to describe the project. And that part of the grant is to answer the who, what, where, and when. The need statement is the why. So in our clear and concise writing, we're just going to tell who are the participants, what ages or grades they are, who's going to lead the activities, what activities will take place, where, how often. Maybe you ask for a timeline. We'll start in September for 30 weeks, ending in June. Maybe you're asked for a more extensive timeline, but the example that I gave earlier about the Happy Go-Getters after-school club, answering these questions clearly and concisely so the reader knows what your program is. That's how we would apply those skills. Moving on to compelling. What you want to say and what they're interested in, sometimes there's not a lot of overlap. And I see so often people write and write and write, and it's not what the reader wants to hear. You're writing a grant for this. They're funding interest in this. If you're all over the place here and writing and writing and writing, you're not talking about what they want to hear. So sometimes we have to get over ourselves and let go a little of some of the precious extras and just focus on what is relevant. That's the difference of grant writing. Use active voice. It is clearer, more concise, and more compelling, our 3 C's. What do I mean? Active voice, the subject acts. We're back to our noun and verbs. Passive voice, the subject is the recipient of the action. So, passive voice. The girl's homework was eaten by her dog. Active voice. The dog ate the girl's homework. It's more active. It's more vibrant. We can see it better. It tells the story. It brings the reader in. The sidewalk was shoveled by the teenagers. Versus active voice, the teenagers shoveled the sidewalk. So here we have teenagers acting. We want the teenagers to seem like they're doing something, not passively the result. The program will be implemented by the agency. You want your agency to be the compelling agent of change. So you want to emphasize the agency will implement the program. It's more powerful. It conveys capacity. So there's going to be sometimes you'll have some passive voice, but with grant writing, really focus on active voice, noun, verb, noun, verb. A very short sentence can also have impact. As I've showed you, I encourage you to break up long sentences and to vary the sentence length. Keep the paragraphs short for the reader who's reading many, many grants, and they're not reading your grant the way they're reading the great American novel. They're just trying to get a sense of what you're doing. The first sentence is important. It should either grab attention or lead into the content of that paragraph. I really like to break up paragraphs. White space is helpful. I'm going to read this out loud. Try to avoid repeating words, especially do not repeat the same words in the same sentences because repetition can be boring, and if you say the same thing repeatedly, you will detract from the meaning. I hope I have made the point clearly. But sometimes repetition builds cadence, which can be nice. We saw the need. We found the answers. We fixed the problem. You seem active here. I like the cadence. We came, we saw, we conquered. There's a reason that's come down through history. So cadence can be your friend. Try to keep your writing active, fresh, and succinct. And alliteration can also be effective, like clear, concise, and compelling, starting with the same letter. And the cadence of 3 is very powerful. I encourage you to use it. Make your writing more compelling. Write with your ears. If there's one thing you take away, maybe that's it. Write with your ears. Read what you've written, or even say it out loud. Listen to your writing. That will help your reader as well get through what you're trying to say. You've probably heard this, that the story of one individual is more compelling than referring to everyone. So you tell me, is this compelling? Is it engaging? Are you drawn in? Edison is a 9th grader whose mother died of cancer when he was 7. His father works 2 jobs to support Edison and his 2 younger siblings. Most days, Edison is responsible for his sisters before and after school. He often arrives at his school a few minutes late because of his family obligations. Yet, he has been suspended repeatedly for late arrivals. This then could bring you into the story of suspensions or whatever it is that your program is addressing. But a little story like this, 4 sentences, can really set up your program and your solutions more than if you say many of our students or many, the individual story is compelling. So we've talked about compelling in terms of writing. I want to turn now to the visuals. Some of our applications are online, but if you're submitting a paper application or emailing it, a Word document, I encourage you to use boldface, bullets, underline. I've talked a lot about paragraph spacing, italics to help draw the eye and bring things out. One thing that I like to occasionally do is draw a box around a key point or program highlights or something. So here you have your narrative, but you're calling out, you're pulling out some key facts in a box. That can be very helpful. I know a lot of people like to put things in parentheses. I attend grant writer conferences, and I was told, and I see it myself, that the I tends to skip what's in the parentheses. So I try not to use too many parentheses. I might put my sources in a parenthesis, but I try not to put anything important in it. If it's really important, I'll use dashes to set it off. But go back and test yourself. Does your eye kind of skim over what's in a parenthesis? Giving you all my tips. To be compelling, use the proposal questions or criteria as your headings. That helps the reader follow. Answer the questions in order. Easy to follow. Try not to refer the reader to other sections. And I've seen this. If you're writing about something and you say back in the first paragraph of the needs section, you don't want to make the reader go back and forth. There's one exception to that I'll tell you later. And I know you know this, but do leave white space. Make it easy on the eye. Makes it more compelling. For online applications where we cannot use boldface or underline, if you've never done one, they disappear with the formatting of online applications when you cut and paste into the box. And by the way, whenever you do an online application, you write it in Word and you cut and paste it into the box because you never know when their portal is going to crash. And you save your Word document a lot. And you tinker with your word counts in your Word document. And they never seem to match what's in the online applications. I don't know why. Back to this. How can you be compelling and draw the eye in an online application? We use capital letters for emphasis. So I might capitalize, our mission is, our vision is. I might name our program to draw attention to it. The name of our program has 3 main components. I would use numbers to help the reader understand when you can't use boldface or bullets. Compelling verbs, they help as well. I'm very noun and verb focused, and a rich, robust assortment of verbs is very helpful. You can go online and download all kinds of verb banks. Spice up your writing. Compelling words. I encourage you to eliminate weak words. These actually lessen impact. May, it sounds iffy. Might, somewhat, rather. And would, could, and should, very weak. Will is much stronger. Your conveying capacity. We will implement our program starting in January. We will. Not if you fund us, we could. That's wimpy. Remarkably, an unexpected word can impart impact. So have a couple of fun words in your toolbox that you can bring out. Think of your reader reading 50 applications with like the same words over and over. If you can pull out a fun word, a spark word, it'll spark their attention. And then maybe they'll read you with a little bit more interest. We want to stand out from the pack. And I urge you to avoid jargon. You might think it makes you look smart. Think again. Reviewers do not like a lot of jargon. They see right through it. In addition to compelling words, there's other ways you can make your application more compelling. A photo says a lot. Is there a great photo or two from your program? If it's a Word document you're submitting, you could put in a photograph in the text or perhaps attach at the end of your Word document. We know a picture conveys 1,000 words. So if you have some good images, submit them. One of my clients is Furniture Share House. They provide free furniture for women leaving domestic violence situations, people leaving homeless shelters, and many other situations. I always attach some photos of the before and after, an empty room and a furnished room. Try inserting a graph, a chart, a diagram. It breaks up all the text, and sometimes a nice chart or graph is very impactful. Data is compelling. I still believe facts do matter. Use them. Cite your sources. Use reputable sources. You all are writing about children. If you're writing about with Westchester Youth Bureau, I hope you all are familiar with Westchester Children's Association and their very rich data resources about children in Westchester. Go back and ask yourself, have I made the case? Is my data convincing? Is it the right data, or did I go off on a tangent? Have I made a clear and compelling case? Moving on to consistent, our 4th C. So if you submit an LOI, a letter of inquiry or letter of intent, and you put in that, we would like to apply for $5,000. And you are fortunate that they invite you to submit a full proposal. You are writing for that $5,000. You must be consistent with what you originally asked for. This is the big area with consistency. Does everything align? The project description, the outcomes, the budget narrative, the budget, and if you are asked, a cover sheet. Those of us that write grants know that very often in the course of working it out, especially with tweaking the budget, you have to change things around. So instead of 50 kids paying $10, we're going to do 40 kids paying $15, or 5 weeks, we're going to switch to 6 weeks. You have to make sure that you've gone back and the correct numbers are now in the project description and your outcomes. We said, 49 out of 50 kids, whatever, that all the numbers aligned. And I think people are pretty good at going back within the narrative and fixing it, but I've seen boo-boos on the cover sheet that you forget to go back and change the actual budget request on the cover sheet. So don't forget that. Your budget will be reviewed, and often by people with real financial expertise. So if you think you can slide something under the rug, think again. Do not put any unexpected expenses, i.e. things not mentioned in the narrative that suddenly pop up in the budget. Don't put unreasonable expenses. I recently was reviewing grants for Impact 100, and one of the applicants put things in the budget that had not been mentioned at a big number with no explanation. And we all pounced on that and did not think this person conveyed capacity. Do break down expenses. So don't just put $5,000, let's say. Break it down if you have space in your budget narrative or in an Excel line. So instead of $5,000 for computers, we're going to write 10 Microsoft Surface Go tablets at $400 each times 10 equals 4,000, plus the keyboards to go along. And then I like to do the math. So I have the 4,000 plus the 1,000 equals the 5,000 that's in my original budget. So I might, if I only have place to put the number in my budget narrative, I'm breaking it down. Your reviewer will appreciate it and they'll think you've done the work, you have capacity, you've done the research to know how much these things cost. They're not trying to pull a fast one over us. That gets you points. So going in a little deeper, and I also have done a budget workshop session, and I know some people get really intimidated by budgets. It's not that scary. Let's break it down. So let's start right here. We have 60 children in our after-school program. We need 5 teachers. We're going to have them 4 hours a week times 30 weeks at $30. All you need is a calculator or an Excel spreadsheet. Not scary. There's our number. We have supplies. They're basically $40 a student times 60 students. There's our total. Here's what's in our narrative. We have t-shirts at blank, art supplies at blank. We're breaking it down. We're showing the reviewer we've done our homework. We have outside artists. Here's how we pay them. And then we take these numbers, the 18,000, the 24,000, and the 22,000. We get a total. We have 60 kids. It's $715 a child. So we put that in the beginning. Here's our program cost per child. Your reviewer will appreciate the clarity. All these items should be mentioned in the narrative. Like in the narrative, or at some point you might say, we have t-shirts, so when we go on field trips, it's for safety. We can identify who our kids are. It also promotes our program in the community. You might put that either in the narrative or the budget. This is the one exception where you might want to refer people back into the narrative, so that you are showing a strong and consistent link between the budget narrative and the program. That's one time where I have occasionally put in a page number. All right, so consistency between the budget and the narrative, important. Also, I urge you to be consistent with abbreviations, with spelling, with the number of children served or the number of sessions. This goes back to that checking if you're tweaking. How many kids are we serving? How often? Make sure if you change it one place, you go back and change it. So sometimes what I might do is I might do a search for, if I knew we were starting saying 5 sessions of 25 weeks, and then at some point we changed it, I might do a search in Word and go back and search for that and see where I maybe had forgotten to change it. I hope that was clear. Or if you originally were going to ask for $10,250 and then you changed your budget, you're not sure you caught it everywhere, I do a word search for 10,250 and see if I missed anything, because it's important to read it back, but sometimes we skip right over it. Be consistent with acronyms if you are using them, and consistently answer every question. And part of what I mean by that, let me go back, answer the question, not just putting words in the box, but did you actually answer what they wanted to hear? We're not politicians doing politician speak, we're answering the question asked. Another area to think about consistency, are you consistent with previous proposals? So you haven't spun off in a whole new direction. Are you consistent with what you've said in site visits? Those of you with larger organizations, maybe someone's writing the grant, maybe someone else is conducting the site visit and someone else is leading the program. Are you guys all on the same page? Are you conveying the same story, the same important points? All staff should be on the same page. When I was executive director at the Pelham Arts Center, I liked to make sure that all my staff, even the custodians, could give the elevator speech, knew what we were about. Everybody was an ambassador for the program with whoever they encountered. I wanted everybody to know consistently what we were about, what our values were, what we were trying to achieve. Up and down, all the way through and through, consistent. So common errors, do you consistently make the same mistakes? Know your weaknesses, know your Achilles heel. There's a couple of words that I just consistently make mistakes on. So know yourself and know to always check them. Consistent. Every section should consistently reflect competency. It's another way of looking at consistency. So in the needs section, are you showing you're competent? Are you showing the problem is too great, it's way too big to address? Or, yes, the need is great, but we can move the needle forward. We have before, and this is what we will achieve with your help in this effort. You're breaking it down. We can do it. We're competent. In your design, we have a clear plan. We're prepared to move forward. We use best practices. You're consistently conveying competency. You're showing, if asked, who your staff is. Our staff is qualified, competent, experienced. Evaluation section, we've met goals and outcomes previously. Is there room in this grant for you to list your prior achievements? Sustainability, you might say we're good at raising funds. We have a track record. or this is startup funding and we will continue it, or we just need these computers and there's no need for continued funding. We need this now and we'll take it from here. We're competent. And of course, your budget is reasonable. It doesn't prompt more questions. Everything is clear. So every section consistently reflects competency, another C word. This has really turned into a session on writing. I want to tell you, when I started as a freelance grant writer, I had been in education, museum education, worked at the Hudson River Museum. As I told you, I was director of education at the South Street Seaport Museum, and then the Pelham Arts Center. And then I worked at the public schools of the Tarrytowns as a grant writer. I was not a great writer when I started out as a grant writer. I was not a great writer, but I learned with these tips on being clear, concise, and compelling. I work with people, I teach grant writing, I work with people, I've mentored a lot of grant writers, I've helped edit and review. Let me assure you, you can write more clearly with practice. You really can. So I'm trying to give you confidence. You can do it. Confidence starts with being prepared, like anything. You've read the grant guidelines. You've read them again and taken notes so you know what you need. You've done the first few slides of this presentation. You've cleared your thinking. Why are you writing this grant? What will you achieve? How will you help people? What will the people you work with know, think, and do at the end? Who do you need to involve to help you get this grant written? The program staff, finance people, partner agencies. So confidence starts with being prepared at the get-go. And I've pulled this out, a separate slide. I, again, think it's so important for you to think about, what does success look like? Your whole grant should exude, this is what success looks like. We have the capacity to do it. We have the plan, we have the resources, the staff, the expertise. Here's our outcomes. They're achievable and measurable, and we're going to achieve them. And this is what success will look like. That will make your funder happy. They want to know what success looks like. They want to know they're making a good investment. Confidence, make a work plan so you know whatever it is you're asked for, whatever the RFP, whatever the grant is asking you for, who's going to do it? Are you working with others? Are you writing it all? Who do you need to get information from, and by when? You can use a little chart like this. You can use many online tools, but plan ahead. That will give you confidence. More confidence as you finish up and you're going back and reviewing what you've done. You're going to reread the instructions and the criteria and make sure your grant addresses what's asked for, that you didn't go off road and start talking about what you wanted to and not what's relevant. Did you answer every question? Meaning you didn't just put words in a box, you answered what they were asking. Did you review the cover sheet, proofread? So going back, leaving time at the end to go back should help you with confidence. Here's one other tip I want to point out. When you're asked for your financials, are you attaching what is asked for? Sometimes you realize at the very end, oh no, they asked for a year to date. Oh, I didn't get that from my finance person and I have to upload this in an hour. So being prepared, making sure you know exactly what you're asked for. Is it a year-to-date budget? Is it two side-by-side, actual and budget years? Then, as I mentioned, have you reviewed all edits to make sure they match? And I really try to use the rubric and grade myself against the rubric if there's a rubric. Or if not, then I try to put on my reviewer hat and do a mock review or ask someone else to read it and say, have I been clear? Is it compelling? Are there questions? Would you fund this program? Does it seem like it's making a difference? And then with confidence, hit submit. For those of you that don't feel you're good writers, I want to tell you, you can write well. You can learn to write clearly, concisely, and communicate effectively. This is the yoga teacher in me. And that's it. And we're open for questions. So we did clear, concise, compelling, and consistent, and we sprinkled in a little competent and confidence. Open for question.
Allison, thank you so much. That was excellent. So much helpful information. I would just like to remind everyone, if you have a question, please feel free to unmute and go ahead and ask Allison, or you're also welcome to go ahead and utilize the chat feature. We'll give everyone a minute or two to come up with some questions.
While you do that, Grant Professionals of Lower Hudson is a resource for everyone on this call. We do webinars. We have grant writers that can help. We can help coach. We can help edit. You don't just have to hire a grant writer to write your grant. We're here to help you improve your skills and capacities.
So I see someone in the chat is asking for the contact information. So I can go ahead and add that to the chat. The slide is also up with Allison's information. So I just want everyone to take a look at this last slide. Allison Paul, Grant Writing and Consulting, and Allison's email and number are there. And I'll also go ahead and insert those into the chat for you.
So I'm not seeing the chat. Should I be seeing it, or I'm just relying on you to tell me?
Hi, Allison. You can actually expand the chat. It's at the bottom of your screen. 3 little dots next to the emoji reaction face. And as of now, no questions have come in,
Okay.
but so much really great positive feedback. You know, really illuminating presentation. Thank you very much. Amazing presentation. Very helpful, very informative. And yes, I've received a few questions about the slides. So just a reminder, I will be sending out Allison's PowerPoint slides. So we will share those with all of you. And I will also be sending out the recording from this WebEx this morning. So you will get both the recording and the slides. And I see Shantae with Boys and Girls Club of Northern Westchester has a question. Shantae, do you want to go ahead and unmute and ask Allison?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, hi.
Okay. Hi, Allison. Thank you, Kate. I have a question. When you're applying for an extremely competitive grant proposal, such as the Impact 100 Transformational Grant, are there any tips that you can give us to kind of really stand out? Because, you know, it's a lot of work.
It is.
And you know, it's a little disheartening sometimes when you go through the process and you get so close to the finish line and then you don't.
It's hard. That's a hard one. It's a little different. Most times when you apply to a foundation or a federal, you're scored and judged, or there's a program officer. With Impact 100, your proposal is read by about 20 different women in a group, and those women discuss it. And you are competing against what's in your cohort, whatever grants they've been given. So you might be competing against 5 or 6 other ones. And only one is going to rise to the top and go forward. So you want to be as clear, concise, and compelling as you can. But that's a tough one. I would say keep applying to Impact 100. And there's going to be a corollary men's group called 100 Donors.
Yeah.
and they're
Yeah.
coming up soon. So that'll give you another shot. Grant Professionals of Lower Hudson does a workshop every year when the Impact 100 grant comes out on helpful tips for writing that grant. And we go through the application and we go through some of our suggestions. So,
Okay,
you know,
thank you.
keep an eye out for that too.
All right. Thank you so much. I do have to go because I have another call to jump on, but thank you so very much. It's been very informative.
Okay.
Take care.
Excellent. Okay, it is 11:30. Thank you so much, Allison, for taking the time to share your expertise with us. And I just would like to again thank everyone for taking the time to join us. Everyone, please stay well and take care and stay tuned for those PowerPoint slides and the recording.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.